Okay, so I want to make a disclaimer here and say that in the essence of presenting my ideas to you as clear as possible, I may run the risk of oversimplifying a few things. So I invite you to look into some resources on this topic. I put a little more than 24 links in the description. No, seriously, that's how many web pages I've read. Like, my brain was fried at one point. Anyways, happy researching. Another disclaimer is that I am not a professional in this field or any field that interacts with narcissistic patients or deals with narcissism in general. I am just a commoner with a bunch of ideas in his mind. If you are a person who might have NPD, or if you are a victim of an abusive relationship with someone with NPD, overt or covert, I strongly urge you to seek a professional to help you. Mental health and mental stability are very, very important, especially in the times that we are living in right now. I don't wish to see anyone live through any tragedies stemming from poor or underdeveloped mental health, so I ask you to make it one of your highest priorities. In the meantime, my thoughts and prayers go out to anyone involved with narcissism or are dealing with narcissists in their lives, and I wish you the best of luck in the uphill quest to let go of excessive narcissism and the many, many forms therein. I would also like to preface that while this is no laughing matter, I will make a couple lighthearted jokes here and there. I am not a perfect person, and narcissists who left a trail of fire deserve to get roasted every once in a while. And I will laugh at my jokes while I edit this piece of work. So with that being said, let's finally start this video. I wanted to share with you this little idea that I've duct taped together in my mind. In our younger, more jubilant days, we experience emotions more intensely. Our temperament is more wild and varied. It's this kind of energy that ideally we would expect to harness and direct and utilize to our best understanding and in the context of our environment. How we understand our emotions better is generally through life experiences, social interaction, and the emerging awareness that what we do will affect other people. How we come to understand that is through trial and error, through making mistakes and getting in trouble in the process. And all the while, we emotionally mature to the point where we hopefully become competent, functioning members of society with a decent amount of integrity. Now, I wanted to step back and observe for a second. What I think is happening is that in our formative years, we unconsciously reconcile two extremes in our mind, one of which I will call the essence of overestimation. This will be our source of drive, but it will also involve our feelings of arrogance, conceitedness, ego, cockiness, grandiosity, coercion, and everything else therein. The other I will call the essence of insufficiency. This will be our source of rest, but it will also involve feelings of doubt, loathing, rejection, abandonment, demoralization, putting yourself down, essentially. And whether or not we know it, we need just a thin slice of these two extremes to function normally. You need a tiny amount of essence of overestimation to get out of bed, or to do groceries, or to perform routine maintenance. And you need a thin slice of the essence of insufficiency to know when to stop working or to get to bed. Ideally, when you master these two extremes and you understand the homeostatic dynamic between the two, and you control yourself from the dangers of each one, a lot easier said than done, by the way, this will cultivate into what I call the essence of mediation. This is the realm of confidence, selflessness, assertiveness, healthiness, modesty, insight, awareness, wisdom, understanding, empathy, all those good sounding traits that we all inspire to embody. I think it's safe to say that we would all like to be in the realm of the essence of mediation. However, to get to that point and to maintain our place in that realm involves monitoring our emotions, tendencies, decisions, behaviors, and routinely refining ourselves in response to our experiences. Unfortunately, this is way harder to pull off, and more often than not, I've witnessed some friends and acquaintances undergo the process of refinement and improvement, and all of a sudden their process was stunted by some kind of blockage. And likely that blockage was in the form of an unresolved conflict or trauma. But I would figure that out only after our relationship has weakened and we distance ourselves from each other. I'm pretty sure you have gone through the same thing. And if either of the two extremes are overlooked or not tended to, Then after some time, we witness the portrayal of two main forms of narcissism. I mean, we also witness other mental issues, but today we're going to be focusing on narcissism. And assuming that everyone is familiar with these forms of narcissism, I will touch upon them just very briefly. An overt narcissist is a stereotypical show-off, highly self-absorbed, feels superior to everyone, has a sense of entitlement, has a callous indifference to everyone else, overinflated ego, will do anything to reach the top of the pyramid, so to speak. Think about that episode of Kitchen Nightmares where Gordon Ramsay visited Amy's baking company and was met by these two simpletons who kept denying that their food was subpar. These two are examples of people with overt narcissism. By the way, I hate these people. It's so rare for me to say that. Like, I'm one of those people who will try to find good in others, or at least seek to understand why people are how they are. But oh my god, someone needs to slap the fuck. A covert narcissist is someone who will be aware of their insecurities and inadequacies, but will use them as leverage to receive sympathy and special treatment. I would argue that this is a more dangerous form because it's more subtle and you can easily lose yourself helping this person. Think about every person you had a crush on when you were younger, and you were enticed by their need for your help, and then finding out that their needs became more absurd, and then you had to distance yourself because your needs were unrequited, undermined, and met with indifference. I know that there are variations of these two examples, but I felt like these were the most tangible and perhaps archetypal examples that I could come up with. The common thing between the two, based on my research and personal experience, is a hypersensitivity to criticism, an extreme aversion to the thought of their limitations, acts of manipulation, and a callous disregard for others, and a tendency to come off too strong and too friendly at the start of any type of relationship, only to show true colors shortly after. Everyone I've met that I've talked to regarding this subject seem to know this like the back of their hand, and will often have opinions that will fall into one of four categories. I hate narcissists and I can't stand them. I believe that narcissists are just emotionally void of genuine love, and I think they can be cured with a little guidance. There's a possibility that I could be one, and this is why I constantly practice self-awareness so that I don't lose my way. Well, it's a simple description on the surface, but I doubt it's easy to solve or even diagnose in real time. Personally, I will tend to fall on the third and fourth category. And since I don't have much to contribute to the antidote of narcissism besides self-awareness and the option to seek a psychological professional, I thought it was worth thinking about the significance of narcissism and the methods of diagnosing said disorder. And it all starts with the story of Narcissus. And I ask, why start here? Because the essence of narcissism, uncontrolled self-absorption, grandiosity, arrogance, has long existed before the story's conception, as long as society and war has existed. I would like to think that this is a byproduct of the modernization of nomenclature. Like, when giving a problem a new name, you run the risk of burying the root of the problem deeper from its solution. In this case, if the root of the problem of narcissism is the hostile, visceral resistance to realize one's own imperfections and limitations, a perfectly normal feeling, by the way, of which people are more than willing to help you with, and narcissism as a word implies a connotation that may likely drive people away, you can see what kind of a conundrum we might be facing here. And don't count on me to come up with a new name for this. Like, I can't even name my future kid in like 5 to 10 years, okay? Let alone an existing condition. But at the same time, we're so used to the word. Like, what the fuck else are we gonna call it? Bed Bath and Beyondism? I mean, it's ridiculous. Anyway, so from what I read, Narcissus was a hunter. Tiresias was a blind oracle that told Narcissus' mother that, hey, your baby boy is going to live a long life as long as he never knows himself. Narcissus was also so handsome and self-absorbed that he turned down all women and men because they could not tug at his heartstrings, including Echo and Aeneas. Now, depending on what version of the story you read, Narcissus essentially told Echo to go screw herself, and she was so devastated that she pined away in a cave until only her echoes were heard. Or she already witnessed the death of Narcissus and suffered the same fate. Narcissus also gave Aeneas a sword and told him to go off himself, which he did, and either Aeneas died or he pleaded on his last breath to Nemesis, the goddess of retribution, to punish Narcissus for his disregard for other humans. Now, either Nemesis answered that prayer or she acted on her own accord. Either way, this led to the infamous scene where she led Narcissus to the pond. Even here, we see different endings to the story. Either Narcissus drowns himself trying to embrace his reflection, or he stabs himself under the sudden and heavy remorse associated with the realization of the unrequited love that he now feels and that he has inflicted on others. Either way, he turns into a flower. Personally, I would go with the version that says Nemesis acts on her own accord. It also gives Tiresias warning that Narcissus should never know himself that much more potency. It's not as tongue-in-cheek as the implication of revenge from an unrequited love. I would also go with the ending that Narcissus stabbed himself and finally got a taste of self-awareness, because honestly, sometimes it does feel that painful. By the way, I do not condone stabbing yourself. Needless to say, I think that the varied iterations of the story runs parallel to the slightly various diagnoses and descriptions of narcissism in general. For example, like plenty of other conditions mentioned in the psychological literature, there's never been a consensus on precisely how many signs indicate a narcissist. For my minimal research, this number ranged from 4 to like 25 signs. Some of the indicators could also apply to depression or anxiety or even healthy confidence or even altruism, and that makes things a little bit more murky when trying to detect narcissism in a person. And don't get me started on narcissist quizzes, okay? In preparation for this video, I took like 10 of them because apparently I'm a masochist, but not that much. About 4 or 5 of them had the exact same 40? I just realized how much time I wasted. Some of them had the exact same questions, and the people who administered these questionnaires claimed that it was theirs, and that already raised an eyebrow for me. I just think that in the process to alleviate narcissism, I shouldn't have to witness a competition to see who gets the credit for coming up with its criteria. Which leads me to question if the scientists involved with conjuring said criterion of narcissism is prone to narcissism themselves. This is off topic, but I would also like to add that our capacity for reason comes with a very elastic nature. I.e., we will rationalize everything that we do, even if those rationalizations conflict with one another. Imagine when you were younger and you made excuses for everything that didn't go your way. I think that's where I was going when I say elastic nature. I also question how much of our tendency to rationalize factored into developing these questions. As for the structure and framing, usually these questions would come with a pair of items and then you had to pick one over the other. And that's totally fine if the implications of each of the pair didn't overlap too much with each other. I'm pretty sure that as a result of that, or maybe something else entirely, I found myself to be inconsistent with my answers. I found myself switching between the two. Examples include I will be a success versus I'm not too concerned about my success. If I feel competent, I am willing to take responsibility for my decisions versus I like to take responsibility for my decisions. I expect a great deal from people versus I like to do things for other people. I can live my life in any way that I want to versus people can't always live their life in terms of what they want. I'm going to be a successful person versus I hope I'm going to be successful. And I can see how these statements could indicate a narcissistic mindset, but they could also be statements of confidence or assuredness or modesty. I prefer the tests that give you a statement and then you decide on how much you agree or disagree with said statement. But maybe the set of questions are prone to the same problem that I mentioned just a minute ago. One had a bunch of questions that were too tongue-in-cheek for my taste, and one had spelling errors which kind of annoyed me, and I suppose the statistics haven't painted a clearer picture either. As for the occurrence of NPD, I've been getting percentages as low as 0.5% to as high as around 10%, not knowing if that accounts for the whole world or just America. If that's the entire world, we are talking about an error margin of hundreds of millions of people. But anyways, I don't really want to seem like I'm bashing anyone for attempting to solve this problem. And oh my goodness, it does seem like I've been doing just that for the majority of the video. But I do fully commend them for trying. I think this is just to showcase how difficult the process of diagnosis could be, let alone actually trying to solve narcissism. Anyways, I'm gonna end it here. I'm open to hearing a lot of opinions, as I feel like mine's is a little bit incomplete. So yeah, I'll see you next time, and have a great day.